Shut up and sit down.
Hi guys, and welcome to Thursday's tutorial. And today we're going to be covering the Heralds of Despair, because we said we'd do a bunch of the paint schemes from the Dark Imperium set, and we thought to finish off the month of Nurgle we'd go ahead and do the Heralds of Despair, because they're very interesting. And what we've done here is we've primed the old Finecast model with Vallejo Grey Primer. Then we're using Games Workshop's Warpstone Glow. That's pretty watered down because it's a layer paint, and those white bits are going to show through the grey bits are going to show through quite a bit, so you know it's going to take a couple of coats there. Next we're going to use Biotang Green, and this time we're not watering it down. Usually I would, but I really want to tone down that armour, because the Heralds of Despair are a very weird looking Nurgle themed army, as they have shiny metallic parts, and it's very contradictory to the whole Nurgle sort of theme. Now we're going to mix the Warpstone Glow with a small amount of Warboss Green and start highlighting the areas. You can tell that looks very vibrant in contrast to the background, but that's because it's watered down a lot, and as always it will dry a lot darker. So that's going to take a couple of coats of that to highlight that up. Now we're going to use the same two colours, but this time I'd say we're starting with Warpstone Glow, mixing in a tiny bit of Warboss Green into it. No, sorry, we're starting with Warboss Green, adding a tiny bit of Warpstone Glow into that, and re-highlighting those areas again, but making sure we get the tops of everything. It's quite time consuming, but we're using the wet palette again. So that's just how it goes. Now we're going to put Celestria Grey by Games Workshop, and that's like 90% Celestria Grey with the tiny 10% of Warboss Green mixed in. I could have used a bunch of Vallejo paints for this, but I was trying to stay away from those. Now we're going to mix in Biotang Green and Dragonov Nightshade and water that down. I'm just using water on this one, because to be honest I ran out of medium. I had to buy some the other day, so I was just using water. It works, does dry a bit more pastel-y or a bit more pasty than the medium does, but you know, you can get by with it, it does the job. Then we're just going to go to straight Celestria Grey watered down and start re-highlighting all those fleshy parts. Starting from the recesses and shading our way, well, lightening our way up to the top. I did like the fluff in the Dark Imperium set for these guys. Sort of how the barbarians used to beat the Romans, get them trapped somewhere and destroy the supply line, and then just watch the Nurgle take over, which is very interesting. Fill a city full of death and disease and just watch it from orbit. It's probably why their armor's so clean. Then we're going to use, I can't remember now. Well, I've obviously primed all the other bits black that we're going to do. Then we're going to be using Rune Lord Brass on the metallic parts, well, some of the metallic parts. So we're going to break this up between Rune Lord Brass and Ironbreaker, because these guys have shiny metals, which is definitely a weird one to paint this, but rather enjoyable. So now we're going on to the Ironbreaker for the trim on the plating, but I generally did most of the pipes and the Rune Lord Brass. Also we do the guns in the same colours. Now we're going to use Steel by Model Air to go over the majority of the Ironbreaker. Just leave it, the Ironbreaker in the recesses for shade. As you can see, I started painting the gun at this point as well. Now we're going to use Bright Brass by Model Air and go over the Rune Lord Brass that we've done. This is just to brighten it up even more. and we're going to leave most of the Rune Lord brass in the recesses, same as we did with the trim. Give it sort of a warm gold look, but it's cold. It's warm. It's warm in the shade, but on the outside it's a bit colder and a bit brighter. Now we're going to water down some null oil and go over all the metallic trim. I watered it down because the trim's still quite shiny on the picture. If you've got the Dark Imperium box, check it out and you'll see what I mean. Now the backpack is also divided up ever so slightly with colours. So Colia green shade was used just to break up all those greens. I decided I was going to break up the colour on the backpack and make two of those sections just a slightly different shade of greeny blue, which I think kind of works. And if you wanted to do something a little bit more different than the Heralds, you could probably do one of the shoulder pads in this colour or one of the knees. Now we're using pale grey blue by model colour, and again we're going back to the rot and the Nurgle and doing very fine lines where everything's raised. Also on the head, make sure you do the eyebrow, the cheekbone, the top of the head, because obviously you don't want to miss those parts. It's quite easy to miss, especially on this figure, because his face blends into his armour. Now I'm going back to Warboss green and Celestria grey, but there's like the tiniest amount of Warboss green. That's just to help it blend with the other layers we've put on, because the shoulder pads have got a Nurgle effect on them, sort of rot, so I needed to bring that up a little bit so it matched the rest of the rot, but not too much so that it takes away from the fact it's still part of the armour. So that was basically just an edge highlight on those. I was trying to get the eye on camera, but it's a real pain to do that. And that was green grey by model colour, because it says it's green grey, but it's ever so slightly more on the yellow side of things, so it really made the eye look cold and stand out a bit. I do like the sculpt for the face on this one. Now I'm going back to the gun, and the bullets needed to look a little bit different to everything else, so I decided to go with the brass scorpion, which works kind of well. Probably could have done a bit more on the bullets, but it's entirely up to you how you paint the gun. I see this paint scheme working quite well for the Dark Imperium box set, because there's lots of details in there to muck about with. Now we're going to do the skulls in a bone, because I couldn't do them in metallic, because for all the metallic parts I needed them to stand out quite a bit, so I'm going to use Morning Fang Brown to cover those, and you can see that's really watered down. And just take your time with a small brush, because skulls of that scale, you can really clog up the details easy. Then, as usual, we're going to go to Zandri Dust. When I first put the paint on the brush, I tend to start with the top of the head, or the top of the skull, because that's where most of the paint's going to need to be anyway, and then start pulling that around, so I don't need to go back to my palette to get any more. I just use the forehead as my palette and then start working around that. Then of course that's going to need a bit more depth, so we go straight to the Agrax Windshade, because can't go wrong with a bit of Agrax. You'll have seen me use this colour scheme for bone on other things. You could use the cold bone that we use, if any of you subscribers know what that one is, if you've seen that on other stuff. Now we're going to re-highlight the shoulder pads and metallic parts, so I'm going to use Steel by Model Air again, while the wash is drying on everything else. Because what I'm going to do is give it an oil wash at the end, so that the shading's very sharp, and obviously I'm spraying a gloss then a matte, so that will tone down the shine on everything as well, but still leave it looking bright. And then again, straight to Zandri Dust to re-highlight that skull, just in the places it's going to need the Zandri Dust highlights, the top of the nose bone, top of the forehead, the cheekbones, and hopefully the teeth if you can get to those. then after an oil wash, as you can see, it looks a lot sharper than it did before. You can edge highlight this. At this point, it's Thursday again, didn't deem it necessary. You just go back to your mix of Celestria Grey and Warboss Green if you want to do a sharper edge highlight and work from there. And that's about it for this video, guys. All we need to do now is stick him on a base, and there we have it. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of our videos, hit subscribe. And if you've got any questions or suggestions, leave a comment, guys. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.